Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Tonight is Monday, June 23rd. Audra, can you have the record show that our city attorney is present, our city planner is absent, our city engineer is present, along with all council members and our city administrator. At this time, I'll ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item of business this evening is our open forum. This is the portion of the meeting where you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak at this time?
Hi, my name is Casey Kutke. I live on 8360 Oakwood Avenue Northeast. I've been a resident here for 13 years. I just want to talk to tonight about a simple change to allow golf carts and UTVs on the shoulders of our roads and electric scooters on our paved trails. I started a petition to see how the community felt about this, and I've gotten over 100 signatures from Otsego residents who are in favor of it. A lot of people just want to be able to get around town in a slower, more relaxed way. Whether that's to visit a neighbor, ride to the park, or just a quiet cruise. Golf carts especially help people feel more connected with the community. When people are out in their carts, they stop and say hi, check in with each other, and it just makes the neighborhood feel more alive. Otsego covers over 30 square miles, so not everything is within walking distance. Golf cart or scooter gives people another way to get around, especially in the warmer months, without having to jump into their car for every little thing. I know some people had some concerns about safety, and I've read the comments, and people are worried about kids not paying attention while riding, or parents not being aware of what their kids are doing, and scooters or bikes going too fast around walkers. I get that, but instead of banning things for everyone, we can focus on enforcing respect for other people, for walkers and kids, and for the roads and trails we all share. Most people use their vehicles responsibly. We shouldn't let a few bad examples take away their option for the rest of us to enjoy the community in a fun and safe way. It's just about giving the residents more ways to get around town, stay connected, and enjoy Otsego.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments? All right, we will close the open forum and move on to item 2 to consider our agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ryan.
On the consent agenda, I'd like to bring down item 3.3. We can make that 5.1.
Okay.
And then I'd also like to bring down 3.5. We can make that 5.2.
All right, any other changes? And a motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ryan, seconded by Michelle. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda. A motion would be in order.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ryan?
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ryan, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 4.1 is the South Central Water Treatment Phase 1 project. We have a presentation tonight by AE2S.
All right, Madam Mayor, Council. All right, ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, so South Central Water Treatment, what's in front of us this evening is the engineer agreement that would essentially kick off the design of the South Central Water Treatment. Larger project, it's really more of a program. We do plan to come back a later date. I'll point it out on the schedule and have a more thorough discussion of some of the details of the project when we're looking to come for the CMAR, and I'll explain some more CMAR. So Adam, go ahead and get into it. All right, so the couple of bullets for this evening, a little bit of background information about the project, some specifics on the design scope, and then get into the project delivery method, which will be a little bit new, probably for many of the folks here, and then a little bit of schedule, and then go to questions. So next slide. All right, so what's in front of you now is the draft, more of a concept site plan. So this parcel was acquired a few months ago with the intent of this being the location of the South Central Water Treatment Facility or Water Treatment Plant. So there will be a site plan. This is slightly updated from the version that a few of you saw last week, that Ron's group has the wetlands dialed in a little bit tighter now. So some of that preliminary work on the wetlands has already happened, and is all good news. So anyway, that's the site plan. There'll be a lot more work that goes into the planning of that site throughout the design. So go to the next slide. Some more of the specifics in basically what's included in what will be this design package. There's some additional wells. 2 of the wells were already part of the test well package that had been bid last year. So part of that test well program will also result in public water service wells. So more like a down payment with those wells getting started. There'll be some additional wells. So all of those wells will be that'll be the water source that'll go into the water treatment. Then there'll be some on-site and some off-site raw water piping. So that's the water that will be conveyed to the treatment. The off-site portion will be handled by Ron's group with the city engineer, just because it's paralleling the streets. It made more sense to go that direction. So a little bit of a team effort there, and then getting into the site master planning. So within that parcel, take a harder look at the future infrastructure, the expansion. This is really the intent right now, is that we're doing the first phase of the capacity. It'll be most of the structure that gets built. The more of the phasing happens on the side with the wells, but this will be most of the structure. Some modeling on that site, and then some of the civil amenities that go with it. On the water treatment, so really the heart of the system, the big part is all the process, including the filtration. So this is the part that improves the water quality, removing that iron, manganese, radium that we've got in all the other wells. So we're expecting the new wells to have basically the same thing or similar to it. Then all the things that go with that, the HVAC, electrical, the civil site improvements. Additionally, anticipating that there'll be an administration portion to this building. It's going to be the central area for the drinking water side of the utilities, and a garage, as well as a ground storage reservoir. As we're continuing to grow, need additional storage volume for that finished water, and then getting that water then connected to the distribution system out to the customers. Next slide. So this is the part that's probably a little bit new. Construction manager at risk. So this is a delivery method that has been used extensively for public projects in other states. It was authorized explicitly in Minnesota for public projects in 2023. So a little bit of change in state law that helped us get to the point to consider this. There's a lot of detail that we can go through with CMAR, but probably the biggest summary is that for vertical infrastructure projects, so buildings, especially some of these process projects, there's a lot of advantages for the CMAR delivery method. Most of what it does is get a contractor involved during the design, so it's more of a collaborative delivery method. we're still planning to do the well drilling as the traditional design bid build, as that it just that delivery method for that portion of the project just fits better with that type of construction. So really trying to tailor the delivery methods for the different pieces of infrastructure. There's a little bit of a flow on the bottom there. Minnesota does require a two-step method. So you start with a request for qualifications. So that's basically you're trying to get to the point where you're really only interviewing the outfits that are truly qualified. So then it goes to a request for proposal stage, anticipating there'll be interviews, there'll be a selection committee. And then once there's a selection recommendation, negotiate that contract. That'll all happen at about 30% design. So you're getting that contractor on board earlier. Some differences in roles and responsibilities. Once you start to get over to the actual construction phase, it's basically all the same at that point, other than that the team's been collaborating for months ahead of that point. It's not just starting to get the contractor and be engaged once the bids are advertised. So the next slide, Councilmember Lund had suggested this one as a good illustration of just, what is the difference, and really a lot of this delivery method is about cost control. That with the integrated project delivery methods, of which CMAR is one of those integrated project delivery methods, you're getting the collaboration a lot sooner when you can have that engagement. Hopefully, I don't know if the colors are quite the same, but it's more of a green. You're getting that collaboration earlier on the timeline when you have a better opportunity to make changes and make adjustments when they're less costly. So especially, if we need, we'll get real contractor costs earlier through the guaranteed maximum price process that the CMAR does. If we do need to make adjustments, we can do those early instead of finding out on bid day that we had a bad bid day. So that's a lot of the part. Everything about building it is still the same. It's that there's more overlap with the design stage. So go to the next slide. This one got a little bit busy, but tried to do as brief of a summary along the top as I could for the different pieces of infrastructure and still have a little bit of detail of what stage they were at. And then take the blue boxes as where it'll be decision points for Public Works Subcommittee, the green boxes where it'll be decision points for council or asking for approvals. Where we're at today with the engineering agreement, we've already been through a couple of rounds with Public Works Subcommittee and had discussed a lot of detail around the CMAR delivery method to get to the point where we were comfortable bringing it to the full council. So that's where we're at today, is initiating with the engineering agreement. I think the intent or what we've talked about is that when we come back to request the CMAR advertisement, we'll have a lot more detail at that time of details of both how we intend to, the details of the actual CMAR advertisement that we're going to put out, and that as well as more details of the project. And so what we're thinking right now is that will probably be a special session that we'll do a little more detail at that time, and then put out that advertisement for the CMAR. We'll have a selection committee that works through that, reviewing proposals, do the interviews. The CMAR is still completely separate from the design team, but they're interacting through separate agreements with the city as the owner. So in that respect, it's very similar to the construction where there's still separate agreements. It is explicitly not design build, but the teams will be collaborating through the contracts with the city as the owner, basically trying to get the best project that we can. And then it goes into, there's a little bit of different language that goes with it. The CMAR, the GMP is the guaranteed maximum price. That would be the functional equivalent of a bid opening at that point. There'll be draft GMPs working up to that, and then there'll be a final GMP. At that point, that's when it will be, we'll come back to the council with a recommendation to approve the final GMP that would be similar to a recommendation to approve bids. And at that point now, it would be actual construction agreements to actually build the project. There's a few other pieces on there are more like probably more what we're used to. The wells will still do a traditional design bid build. We'll come ask for permission to advertise or authorization to advertise, and we'll do the actual bid recommendations. Similar with the pipelines, those are delayed or further back just because of the test well bid package. We need to get that test well program done in 2026 so that we know where to locate the wells. And then the pipelines, there would be some to work through with the easements and getting the pipes in the right spots and doing that design. And then, if all of this goes right, a couple years from now, we'll be doing a ribbon cutting on a new water treatment that'll give us the ability to add a whole bunch more houses with our water system. So that's the goal, is really increase capacity of the water system while also having improved water quality. So next one. With that, we've gone through the detail, gone through a number of different iterations of exactly what's in the scope of services for the design. I got a summary table here. The design team has gone through the effort to estimate hours, level of effort, and has come up with this amount for the engineering agreement. This would be scoped through, it'd be bidding on the wells, negotiation on the CMAR side. So basically get up to that point where we would go to the construction phase with the intent of, as we've done with many of the other projects, then we would do an amendment at that construction phase when we concurrently with the contractors contracts for those construction phase amendments. Generally, it's the standard contract language that we've worked through on a number of different projects for the terms and conditions. Really no changes on that front end part. The back end of the scope, there are some adjustments for the CMAR, things that are just different because of the different delivery method, and working through that with the city attorney. It's in for city attorney review. I anticipate there'll be a little bit of back and forth there, but we've got a draft that's in for review right now. So I think next one is questions.
I have one. I'll start off. So you talked about this came to be in 2023, that there was the change for the CMAR. Have you done other projects in other communities? And I guess, were you impressed with, you talked about collaboration on the front side of it and working through the process. Did you feel that you got something different by using this, and which I know we have to now, but did you get to a different point, or did you feel as though using the way that we used to do it and getting to a project was the same result?
I think the collaborative delivery, really that interaction with the contractor during design, like the people who will actually be building it, gaining that input throughout the design, it gives you the opportunity to do a lot of things that you're really looking for, those items where, if we make this adjustment, the project is still absolutely as good of a project, it just maybe costs less, or there's a way to do it a little bit differently that allows it to get built, more expediently. Also, just managing risk, getting the contractor in the room when you're talking about things that, things like equipment delivery. The last few years we've had a lot of issues with particularly electrical gear. Like those contractors are then, like, they're dealing with it directly every day. Like, most of the information I get about electrical delivery is from the contractors anyway. So this is just bringing them into the room, getting them on the team earlier so that we can do things like game plan the construction phasing just to make the project better. Because if we can get the construction schedule even a couple months better, where those general condition costs are no longer costs because we're getting the project done. So it really is about getting the people who are designing it and building it collaborating. In general, that's my opinion on the CMAR. So the first CMAR project I was involved in was in Arizona in 2007. So this has been around for quite a while. My opinion is that for vertical construction, it's the preferred delivery method. For horizontal, like pipelines, it's not that you can't do CMAR for the pipelines. There's just not nearly as much advantage for the pipelines, for the horizontal projects. So it really is about the project type, whether it's worth it to consider the CMAR delivery method. Adam, you want to push a couple slides down? I do have a list of, so went through what the water wastewater projects that have been initiated in Minnesota since that change about 18 months ago. And it's a pretty healthy list considering the pretty short time frame. The closest one would be Monticello and their water plant that's went the CMAR route. They're probably 6-8 months ahead in terms of schedule in Monticello, and they've just gone through their CMAR selection process in Monticello. So I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot closer than that for a pretty similar project. So that's general Minnesota. I think it was the next one. Include A2S projects across many of the other states. Many of these are just because other states have had it authorized for longer. We have less of them in Minnesota because it's been a shorter time frame.
Well, thank you for asking or answering my question. I'm not on the Public Works Subcommittee, so you guys have talked about it a lot more, but
We talked about it for 3 days, yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
there you go. So I mean, as I read through it, I'm like, okay, it kind of makes sense, but I do think having the people in the room, because they're the ones putting it in and they know all the steps to it. So having them in earlier, or if it's like, hey, we can double up and this could come in at the same time and we're not letting it sit dormant for a little bit.
Usually you get a faster delivery method too, for the project as a whole. You're overlapping like the construction team with the design teams who are able to make decisions in a quicker fashion versus like you go to hard bid, you do bid day opening and you're over budget. What do you have to do? You have to go back to the drawing board, redraw stuff, re-advertise, resend it out to bid. That extends the schedule out usually. Especially when you're talking about a larger project such as this, and with the risks of tariffs and other things, you are at a higher risk of not maintaining that budget during this type of scenario that we have right now.
I could see it's the change orders that we're not going with or adding
Yeah.
the alternates. Like, so this almost takes away that piece of it that we're used to seeing.
You'll still have some of those things. You'll have a different bucket to work with. You'll have something called contingency, which will be something we'll get into more later. But contingency is basically for those unknowns or situations that you run into during construction. You run into a bunch of peat in the soils, and now you gotta excavate and soil correct and all that other stuff. And there's other things too. There's weather conditions that can play a factor into cost of a project, which could result in a change order. You're just allocating a reservoir of dollars to deal with that. So it's not money that has to be spent. And then you would still have alternates if you don't spend that money that you can maybe pull the trigger on.
It does really help with risk mitigation.
Big time.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I was gonna say when we were having the meetings on this Public Works Subcommittee, that was kind of my big concern as well, is with sort of traditional design bid build, we kind of have built-in checkpoints of the change orders. And in the CMAR world, we probably hopefully won't have change orders because it would all be handled by the CMAR unless it's something that, completely out of scope. But we still have the checkpoints as well. And we still have someone who's ultimately responsible for the success of the project. And kind of the thing that swayed me towards CMAR was what the member previous pointed out in that slide, or had that slide added, which was, it's kind of the 110-100 rule, right? If you have things you need to change, it's a lot cheaper to change it when it's just on paper. So if you can get the people in the room that are going to be able to tell you what makes sense, that saves a lot of money, saves a lot of headache and a lot of frustration. So that kind of swayed me towards we should probably use CMAR in this case.
thank you. Any other questions?
I did have one quick one. It was one of the first couple slides, the sort of the rough layout of the site.
Okay.
I think the last time I saw this, the access drive had a wetland on it. Has that actually been removed?
Yeah, so the preliminary, the previous version, let's call it the last week version.
Okay.
It was the desktop.
Mhm.
Where it had, we're pretty sure these are wetlands. These are ones you need to go check out in the field. The boots have been on the ground now, and that was what that was eliminated, is when actual got on the ground and we're able to investigate better than the desktop version. It apparently turned out to not be a wetland. And
Yay.
Which is
That's
good.
good.
right. Yeah, when I did look at this, I was pleasantly surprised by how much less hatching there was.
Okay,
That is so good.
So thank you to Ron's group.
Mhm.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah, thank you.
Boots on the
Ron.
ground. Tell us there's not water.
Nikki and Eric.
There you go. All right, any other questions? And if there's no more questions, thank you, Scott, and we have a motion. Anyone like to make it?
Okay, I'd like to do the motion.
Okay.
And I haven't done this before, so. Okay. All right. I motion to approve professional service agreement between the city and Advanced Engineering and Environmental Services LLC, AE2S, in other words, for the South Central Water Treatment Phase 1 project in the amount of $1,663,250. The final execution of the agreement pending review and approval by the city attorney.
second.
Motion by Michelle, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Scott. All right, moving on to item 5.1. Ryan?
Yes, I asked for this to be pulled down, so there'd be a separate vote. I oppose this action because our city is able to receive excellent service from our existing contract providers at a price point that is cost efficient for the taxpayer. If this action is approved, the expenditures to date for our one-person fire department will increase to $3,506,807.12, which is over 2.5 times the cost of the contracts.
Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, a motion?
Mayor, I'll make motion.
Mhm.
Motion to approve pay application number 6 in the amount of $218,610.79 for work completed on the fire and emergency services facility project.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Corey. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Item 5.2. Ryan.
Madam Mayor, this is on the fire department's community risk reduction team. Just a few weeks ago, we were presented with an internally conducted staffing study for the fire department. That staffing plan included a duty crew and paid on-call firefighters, along with college interns or high school cadets. It did not include anything related to a new community risk reduction team. In fact, it noted that these activities would be handled by the duty crew. Education and risk reduction was and should be handled by our contract providers. However, we've told them that they are no longer welcome in our city. We've told them we don't need their help. Now we're adding more staffing to fix a problem that we created. This is a textbook case of cost overrun and a clear reminder of why we need our contract providers. None of these expenses were budgeted. As if that weren't already bad enough, this request comes with no budget, no specified number of positions, nothing. It's a request for a blank check, stripping away what little oversight the council still has over fire department spending. For those that attended the Joint Public Safety Commission meeting, they may have noted that there was some confusion from residents because one of these so-called community risk reduction team members was already claiming to be a city employee. They claimed to be working for the fire chief, which was surprising since the council retains all hiring oversight for city employees. Yet we've had these team members running around in department garb representing the city. I think the reason the council was not consulted on any of these decisions is because my colleagues have made it clear that this will get approved even without a thought. This was on the consent agenda because the administrative subcommittee has already given their blessing for this. How much is this going to cost? We don't know and we don't care. How many employees will be hired for this new team? It doesn't matter. We are past the point of even bothering to budget for fire department expenditures. We have now transcended the constraints of budgeting, and we have found the nirvana of endless spending. We don't even need a council anymore because no oversight will happen. Now, I know what the response is going to be because there's an empty promise in here to keep the expenses within the non-existent budget. We'll just use the existing fire department budget. But if that's the case, what isn't getting done with the money the council had already authorized for the fire department? Where are we pulling from? And why were we given a budget with that much bloat that a new team could be stood up from whole cloth without it impacting anything? This council needs to do a better job of scrutinizing department budgets if there's this much extra taxpayer money just waiting to be spent on unplanned expenditures. The blank check and lack of a budget is bad enough, but this request and the language within shows more planning should have been done here. The requirements of the job of a community risk reduction team member are as follows: be over the age of 18, have a driver's license, have a high school diploma or GED. That's it. If you can fog a mirror, you can join the team. But the job responsibilities mean we will have these team members conducting fire inspections without being licensed fire inspectors. They will be providing education on fire safety without having any background in fire safety. We're going to have them develop fire safety initiatives without being trained in that field. They're going to analyze fire incident data after we've claimed that it didn't exist in the fire staffing study. But the real kicker is they will be operating fire apparatus and other city-owned vehicles without having the required classification or training on those apparatus. One might think we would have the requirements that fit the role, but instead, I'm sure the response is going to be, don't worry, we'll train them to fill the requirements of the role. And to that I say, at what cost? Where is that in the budget? What I think should be obvious to anyone who has followed this saga is that this new team is really a smokescreen for pre-hiring outside of the council's normal procedures. The narrative included in this request even hints at the fact that it's expected that these team members will transition into being paid on-call firefighters. So now residents have to pay for a fire chief before we even have a department, fire trucks that can't even be used, and a team of firefighters that won't be able to fight fires. I will not be supporting this because the fire department does not need a squad of cheerleaders. It needs a reality check.
Okay. Any comments? I have a few, Ryan, actually. When we talked about this at admin meeting, as you referred to Corey and I sit on that, we went through this, we asked questions. So to say that it was just given a blessing, I think is not a fair statement. We do have upcoming events, like we have community events of Touch a Truck, National Night Out, Night Unite, Prairie Festival. There are things that are already in the works for where we bring the fire truck to. There are certain community events that we anticipate them to attend. And so by saying there's a blank check to it, we've already outlined that it's not just they're going to be working. It's $15 an hour if you look at what the cost is for this person or people. So, and also I would say that by meeting some of them at the Touch a Truck event, most of them do have already existing fire background. So by saying that they just have to be 18 and breathe on a mirror, that's not a fair statement either. So just like any of our seasonals that we hire in the other departments, this would, we're hoping to get the best applicants for this also.
I have a question.
Michelle.
So Ryan commented on, and I'm not seeing it outlined in the description of the program overview. He said something about they're gonna be doing fire inspections and stuff. I don't see that in here at all. They, they talk about smoke alarm installations, home safety checks, but that's not an inspection specifically. But I guess I'm not sure where you were getting that information, Ryan.
Yeah, the item C for job function as well as item I.
See under one?
Yep.
Okay, that's smoke alarm installation programs and home safety inspections. Okay, and which one? What's that?
I
I?
provide support for fire prevention inspections as directed.
Support, but not doing the actual inspections. The home one, maybe expanding on what that actually means. But I hear what you're saying. I would imagine for businesses and stuff like that, the inspections would be done by a licensed individual if somebody's checking to see if somebody installed a extinguisher in their home in the right locations, or the fire alarms and stuff like that, to check and make sure that they're in functioning order, or helping somebody that can't reach to change a battery or something like that. I see that as fitting into this role, but I guess yeah. So this is what the objective is, just to have support member that's helping guide the rest of the team and get things set up, is the way it seems for the most part, plus doing some other beneficial stuff. So whether it's organizing events, I guess I'm asking a question as far as like, that's the way I'm interpreting this, is it's really a support function, like a kind of a broader than admin function. It's like, we're gonna get things set up, we're gonna pitch a tent, we're gonna, do some announcements and communications. Yeah.
Mayor, I think what Councilmember Lund is saying is accurate. These are not full-time, they are not licensed firefighters. This is a transition staffing component to bring the department from where we are now to operational phase in 2027.
And is this to help set the stage for what's going to be a department? And this will transition into a different role.
Yes, I would anticipate that completely, that once you have a staff group of paid on call and duty crew members, that they're handling those key functions that a fire department, fire inspections, you would expect them to, and these staff members would be operating in more of a support role. So,
Madam Mayor, I would just, the way I read that is not the case. The second page of the narrative says that some members of the CRR team are anticipated to have interest in the transition to roles as pay-on-call firefighters, completing the required training and certifications. Others will continue to serve in CRR capacities and support community programs, even if they are not fully qualified as firefighters. So it seems to me like we're creating a whole nother team that is going to exist as a separate team after we have firefighters.
Well,
And it could go away as.
right, it could go away, but I think they're just trying to leave the door open instead of saying for sure it's gonna go away. It could expand into a different capacity. So I know in some communities, they have like people that will help respond if there is a fire event at somebody's house. So a support member would show up with blankets and clothing and stuff for family members that are suffering the loss of their home.
And I believe in those communities, they call that a CERT program instead of CRR. I know the Public Safety Commission years ago looked at a CERT program.
Madam Mayor, my understanding of CERT is that it's a community-run organization. It's not a paid, well, it's not a municipal organization. They don't belong to the city. They're not employees of the city. It's a community-run
I
organization.
believe at the
CERT.
time they were looking to figure out how they could be volunteers, but be hired through the city because there were some concerns with insurance. Am I correct on that, Adam?
yes, and Mayor, that was approaching a decade ago that those things were under consideration. So I'm not up to speed exactly on that conversation, but
And it went away up, obviously.
Councilmember Dunlap is hinting at, progression into future roles, and there would be additional job descriptions and recruitment by being hired as a CRR team member in no way qualifies anybody to be a firefighter. There would be a separate recruitment and hiring and background vetting process to maybe these people are interested in that when those positions exist in the future, and they would have to apply and be qualified and interview and be hired by the city council for those positions at that time.
Adam, to Ryan's comment about the budget.
Yes, Mayor. So if you look at the total fire protection budget within the general fund, it's $1.593 million. So the idea of finding $750 to $1,500 to pay 5 to 10 members, $15 an hour, for anywhere from 6 to 12 specific events throughout the year is manageable by myself and the emergency services director to shift budget dollars from maybe a supply account or a training account into paying for wages for the CRR team.
So where's the budget for the CRRT? How many people are we going to need? All of that is absent from this request.
Mayor, council, we anticipate an initial hiring recommendation of somewhere between 5 to 10 members. So again, we're targeting 6 to 12 events that may require anywhere from 2 to 4 members. A larger event, maybe such as National Night Out or the Prairie Festival, maybe there would be more people. Maybe you have the whole 5 to 10 member crew working an event like that. But on a typical event, it's 2 to 3 people working 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess if that's the intent, again, it's not included in the request, but the major job functions and all of that kind of stuff does not lend itself to, we just have people showing up to National Night Out, it's just gonna be a couple hours for a couple people. The job description is a lot more in depth than that. And maybe that's because it's gonna transition later on, but I'm looking at what's in front of me. So
Mayor, council, that may be fair. And to say that the job description hints at more qualifications, because those are the type of people that the city's looking to attract. We're not looking to attract 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids who are not interested in fire service. We're looking at people that have some investment or interest in serving their community in a public safety factor. So the job description hinting at those type of responsibilities or roles warrants attracting the right type of person for the role.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion.
Yes, Tina?
Motion to approve the community risk reduction CRR team member job description and to authorize recruitment of team members.
second,
Motion by Tina, seconded by Corey. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Moving on to city council reports and updates. Heritage preservation, Corey.
Thank you, Mayor. OHPC met on June 10th and discussed themes for the Prairie Festival and 35th anniversary, and incorporating a possible time capsule.
And they're planning to advertise that, correct?
Yeah, so they're talking about, building a big booth with, I guess, advertising people to come in and come up with ideas what to put in the time capsule. So more to come on that.
I'm excited.
Mayor, council, there was an article in the current edition of the newsletter that references this, and I believe communications posted a social media post. And
We
the
talked
next
about that at
edition
the end.
Yeah.
newsletter would include a similar article encouraging people to share their ideas or bring them to the Prairie Festival.
Thanks, Al.
All right. Next is Park and Recreation, Michelle.
Yes, we met last Tuesday. We talked about, Carrick's Landing. Sounds like the dock is going to be installed this week. Otherwise, the paddle ports have been delivered and, are ready for people to utilize. pending the dock, which will make it a little bit easier to get off your kayak. And
You told me it was dangerous.
yeah, it was for me. I tried it with my own
We sent her down
my own
river
cat.
first.
kayak. Send me down first. Yep. I needed help to
I'm
get out of my
kidding.
kayak, which is like never a problem. It was just bizarre.
But the dock wasn't there, so.
Nope, it wasn't. So I'm looking forward to the dock being there, and then I'm gonna try it out for real this time. So, and then the other thing that we talked about, a big, large conversation around the Prairie Park master planning. And so we reviewed kind of all the different features that have been kind of identified as key items to be included into the master planning effort. And then talked about the different phasing. So it's going to be broken up. It looks like possibly 2 phases. And kind of what components are going to go into each phase, and more to come on that as that develops further. Yeah, I think that's really the
And-
big announcements there.
And just to confirm, I believe I saw a post that said June 30th would be when we go live.
Mayor,
Was
that
that-
is that is the anticipated go live date.
Okay,
For the,
for
Yes.
the,
The city website does include a new button on the front page.
yeah,
With
For
this
the-
information.
Kayak.
for the
for the
kayak
kayak.
rental and stuff like that.
Yep.
More
Yeah.
information there. They're gonna be posting videos if they haven't already done so. Some of the,
maybe
Team-
you could do the video, show people how to get off.
yes, the right way, and the wrong. way. Yeah, I could do both. I have to learn the right way now.
Well, when you told me that, I was like, well, they talked about this dock and it's-
Yeah, it was just not installed yet. They had some delays on the
Okay.
fabrication side of things, it sounds like, so.
well, at least you didn't end up in Dayton. You would have just kept floating down.
That's okay. That's usually where I end up.
Okay, well,
Maybe you could be in, the safety camp.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Here's what you don't do, boys and girls.
Done by someone.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Planning Commission, Ryan.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the Planning Commission met last Monday. We received some excellent training from our city attorney. Thank you. I found it very informative and helpful. The Planning Commission also reviewed and approved updates to the subdivision ordinance. The Planning Commission meeting that was scheduled for July 7th has been canceled.
Thank you. Public Safety Commission, Tina was absent, I was present. It was a short meeting. Information was passed out in our packet from our 3 departments. They are working on the mission statement, but at that time, the commissioner that was working with Daryl and Heidi, our communications person, they were meeting the next day. So they anticipate to be bringing back some ideas and revisions to their July meeting. And what I was going to add to that, with the resident left, but I believe Jason did speak with the resident who spoke during open forum. And he's shaking his head. I'm wondering if you invited him to the Public Safety Commission. Okay, good. That's what I was planning to talk to, let him know that that would probably be a good start. We could also then talk with our planner. We have visited this item years ago, and so working with the Wright County Sheriff's Department and staff, and probably also Park and Rec would be a very good fit since, or Dave, do you have something? You looked at me.
No,
Oh, okay. Dave, you can be involved too.
not usually involved in park and rec stuff.
No, right. I mean, he did talk in here about scooters, and we can all agree scooters are already using our trails and they go really, really fast.
Well,
So,
it depends on what you mean by scooters, I think.
well, he just said scooters.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mayor, I guess I do have something.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
there's I don't know if you've looked at this or anybody on the Park and Recs team has looked at this, but there's a guide the state puts out on, I think it's called like low power and non-traditional vehicles or something like that.
Okay.
So it addresses all these different things that people are grappling with right now, like scooters and golf carts and e-bikes that are not exactly like e-bikes because they're more powerful than e-bikes. So there's a big range of products out there that cities are trying to grapple with whether they can regulate, how to regulate, because some of these are regulated, most of these are regulated by state statute, but some are not, or at
Okay.
least they're technically partially or fully illegal under state statute. So you might want to look at that guide as a starting point when you think about what kind of regulations the city wants to do.
Sure. Could you make sure that you get us all an email of that and then also send that
That
to
would
the
be
Public
helpful.
Safety Commission?
Yeah.
have Katie send that to him. I just think having that information ahead of time, just so that they can look at, since
Yeah,
mean,
I can.
I appreciate that people are very passionate one way. I've also gotten a lot of emails the other way for it too. So, and I'm not sure where council is, if they've gotten emails either way on it, but
Madam Mayor, I think, I mean, well, I don't want to say whether I've seen more one or the other because it's just social media, but I did notice that Forest Lake recently allowed theirs just a couple months ago. I think they reversed. They used to have a prohibition and they've changed it. One of the council members there said they were surprised. They were initially against it, but they noted that they went around to the other cities that have allowed it and they haven't seen any issues. Was that council member's comment in Forest Lake? And then I know Champlin also reversed their position on golf carts that used to be prohibited. I believe that was about 2 years ago, and they went with kind of a licensing program. So I think it would be a good idea to look at what we could implement here, what options are available. I can tell you a couple years ago when I was going door to door, it was a pretty hot topic. I had quite a few people say we need to change our mind on the golf cart issue on local streets. So I would be in favor of us having a look at what ordinances would make sense for Otsego.
Was that mostly in Martin Farms? Were you here?
I would say mostly in the northeast side of the city, and then of course in the northwest they do it anyway. You see them on golf carts all over the place, so they're not really following the ordinance anyway. But you know, I think probably some areas of the city would be better for this kind of ordinance.
Sure.
But
I know when we looked at it last time, it was golf carts and UTVs. They did not want just golf carts. It was,
Yeah, I think
and
one
that's,
leads to the other.
yeah, and that's where the disconnect. And tonight he definitely said golf carts, and he did say UTVs, and then talked about scooters. So
but technically UTVs are allowed within with the snowmobile ordinance right now today.
but they can't ride in the ditch. Correct, Jason? Me and Michelle are both in a snowmobile club, and I know that
Yeah,
they
So-
tell them no.
no,
Before he answers, I was just gonna say, that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me is I believe we allow UTVs. We don't allow golf carts at all.
so
No UTVs.
no UTVs, no
I thought that was in
four-wheelers,
snowmobile
Yeah.
ordinance.
no, just snowmobiles during snowmobile season. That's my understanding.
So the state recognizes the different classes of the vehicles. You have UTVs, ATVs, different classes of ATVs. Golf carts are going to be a separate thing. We kind of look at the totality of the circumstances of each individual item to try to narrow what statutes we're going to go to, because some of the statutes, if I'm being honest with you, seemed a little bit contradictory, because we can kind of look at specifically, city of Otsego, make sure any trails, absolutely not, no motorized vehicle. Technically, a Power Wheels would be in violation of it here in the city of Otsego.
But I assume you're not writing any tickets for that.
No, we will not
Good
write any
job.
tickets for a.
I was like,
So, but to point like how extreme we can technically take it, so to speak, to give that
Sure.
example. If you start going down into the ATV statutes, there are different classes and each class has different rules, and you could technically interpret some of the rules inside of our city. The California style roads, Palmgren Avenue, as it winds around, you could technically take the state statute and interpret it different ways depending on how we're looking at it. So again, we use the totality of the circumstances to whether or not we're going to use and even pull the vehicle over. Do I have a reasonable articulable suspicion to even do a traffic stop on this vehicle? And then go down the line of, do we need to do a citation with it? We write very few citations, if any, for some of these things. Is typically an education, explain this is why this rule is in place or what our interpretation of the rule is, and go from there. We typically won't issue any sort of summons, citation, traffic ticketing like that unless there's something egregious with the situation. I just think there's too many things that are open for interpretation on there. I'll kind of give you an example. If you use a class 2 UTV, so you have a Polaris Ranger side by side, and let's say Queens Avenue, you have a big wide road with these big wide shoulders. People will sometimes drive on the shoulder. Well, you're not technically supposed to be on the shoulder. You're supposed to be technically in the lane of traffic because you're using your blinkers like you're a normal vehicle and you're a registered vehicle.
But then when you get to the turn lane, suddenly it's this super goofy situation of like, well, is it an ATV? Is it a motor vehicle? What are you using it as? Sometimes we see that with the golf carts too. It's like, well, what are you using this as right now? Or is it a motor vehicle? Is it a class 1 UTV? It's really kind of bizarre situation. And quite frankly, we just have to take each individual incident or observation as its own thing and try to apply what we can at the time. And essentially it comes down to, is this a public safety issue or not? And we make a decision from there.
So in regards to snowmobiling, I just want to answer that for you. So most of the trails go through private landowners. For example, Wednesday's the landowners dinner that we do for all of Wright County. Those people sign off saying snowmobiles can go certain times. There has to be snow. We don't want to wreck their crops, wreck the fields. But the only spot that you would be able to potentially, and I would even look at you for this, is 39. Otherwise,
Yeah, 39 is.
39 is the only one, and I've never seen.
I think there's a couple other locations, just.
Well,
thinking about
but
the
if,
map,
like you're coming from like my section over by Quad A, you're going through
Mhm.
Dark and Wild, so you're going.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the
I mean,
trails on
it's
the
all
east side,
it's all people's property. It's all private property.
all the trails on the east side of the city are going exclusively through
Private
people's
property.
yards and
Yep.
property and trying to get the certain approvals, and it's
Yeah. And those do not. I've seen the language on there. It does not include anything outside of snowmobiles
And
in the winter.
Mhm.
yeah. So then, like our own city ordinance, without getting into crazy detail, we can certainly table it for the public safety mission or commission with this stuff. But yeah, essentially it tries to take the snowmobile map and ATVs and tries to put it together as one thing, but then that leads to its own problems too. So with interpretations of,
And maybe I misspoke because I'm thinking of ATVs, right? And my memory of the ordinance is that ATVs are allowed as part of that snowmobile map. But maybe I'm wrong.
No.
We're in the
I don't
club,
think
and
so.
we, if anyone comes and asks, we tell them it's only
Right.
snowmobiles.
It's
Huh.
only for snowmobiles.
And I'm not referring.
Yeah.
You'd have to pull it up if
We don't
quickly pull
have
it
a
up.
mate.
But Dan's not here tonight, so
Yeah, Dan would probably.
so
We
I
don't-
know so
we don't
Ryan, I
have-
think I know what you're actually referring to. There's how it interprets. There's a couple things in our ordinance that will basically throw things on top of one another that says like a class 2 is equivalent to a snowmobile, and that's where we're running into the problem. Is sometimes the city's ordinance with that basically saying, the ATV class 2 use the same map as the snowmobile, and we'll use that as the city ordinance. Those actually conflict each other a little bit with the state statute, and that's where we kind of run into those problems. So I know what you're referring to,
So
and hence my confusion of trying to even explain it.
yeah,
I'm giving a very clear as mud situation, which I'm famous for, but quite frankly, that's where we run into the issues. It's just these different things, picking and choosing what is appropriate for them.
so would you recommend that at the very least we clarify the ordinance?
Yes, that would be
that's why
difficult
we're
in
directing it
itself.
to him.
And that was one of the previous conversations we had, even with the golf cart, is because the golf cart would be potentially conflicting with the state statute on there, and that was part of the discussion of trying to get the golf carts, class A UTV, class 2 ATV, snowmobiles, all trying to put these different languages in there and making it that much more complex, and then saying which roads. So essentially, if I go into the history of that conversation, 2020, 2021, I can't remember exactly when it was when we were having that discussion about the golf carts. Most of that came down to, at that time, we were having more road construction in the city than we've had in a long time. And we were recognizing, because we don't have a traditional layout of the city, it was very difficult to say it would work here, but it's really not going to work over here. And with the road construction, there's just not the time to be throwing extra vehicles into the situation, because we were having all sorts of traffic complaints around the city. So that was one of the main reasons I think that kind of got pushed away at the time. And so that was part of the explanation that I gave to the resident that came, that said public safety would be a good place too. We can have a little bit more open
Right.
conversation about this, pull
Right.
open the ordinances, and we can
Yeah,
have
I
a
feel
discussion.
bad that he left, but
Well, I wanted to explain to him that,
sure.
again, that with an open forum, there's no requirement to have a discussion back and forth.
Right.
And like, we can have the discussion down the line.
Sure.
So I wanted to invite him to that, and then
Thank you.
then the commission can have some sort of direction for staff or council.
And we can have Dan send what we currently have, get that to him. have Dave get us copies of what you were referring to. Pass it on.
Send it to Adam.
Okay. Thank you.
I have the residence number. I texted him.
Okay.
With the date of everything. And
Great.
If he has anything else, you can contact
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had reached out to him and I saw his post and I said, you know, it'd probably be best for you to come to open forum like that and start the ball rolling. If so.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. We are done with Public Safety Commission. We're still under City Council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything?
Madam Mayor,
Corey?
I'm just gonna mention Councilmember Dunlap and Adam and I attended the Albertville social
Okay.
with our Albertville friends. It was a big turnout. I thought it went really well. It was fun.
I'm glad you guys went to Sweat Ducks. I messaged them and I said, I'm sorry. It looked really bad at my house and I was like, I know where that tent is and it's a long way from where I need to park.
There was no competition for parking though, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good point. I didn't think of it that way, but yes, I'm glad it was good.
Yeah, went well.
I have one more update.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be attending the legislative update
Okay,
Friday.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And that's at the county.
Yes.
Thank you. Good. All right. Anyone else? All right, moving on to staff reports and updates. First item on here is to consider scheduling a special meeting for July 14th, 2025.
Mayor, Council, thank you. If I could request a 5:30 PM meeting on July 14th for special topics ranging from potential offers for sale of city property, budgets, some updates on previous things that the council's discussed earlier this year, including strategic planning, council handbook, and then also a legislative update that has some impact on city council. So don't know if we'll get to all of those, but that's the
I
range.
was gonna say, it sounds like a lot at 5 meetings.
We
Wow.
may,
So we may just continue it after.
correct,
So-
Okay.
or we'll limit the discussion to the priority items. So.
Is everybody good with the 14th at 5:30?
Yes.
Everyone? Okay. Then I will make a motion to schedule a special city council meeting for the July 14th at 5:30.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting is scheduled.
All
All
right.
right, now, Adam. what else you
Mayor,
got?
thank you. Two quick updates. Please mark your calendars for July 28th. So that is a tentative date to do a ribbon cutting for the West Wastewater Treatment Facility.
Okay.
So more information to come from Operations Manager Niedermeyer on that, but just wanted to get that date out there.
What time are you?
Yeah.
anticipating?
Specifics not defined, but likely mid to late afternoon
Okay.
because it has a council meeting date. So.
Yes, it is. council.
And reminder, city offices will be closed next Friday for Independence Day.
Thank you. Audra,
Thank you, Mayor. I have no updates.
Dave,
Oh, thanks, Mayor. I think Ryan just mentioned it. I did come to the planning commission a week ago, give a training. I thought it went well. I'd like to start doing that on a fairly regular basis, maybe every other year, similar to what I do for the council. After an election for the council, it's an orientation for new members and refresher for continuing members. I anticipate kind of doing the same thing for planning commission. That kind of fell by the wayside. It wasn't happening for a while after COVID, but I'd like to get it back on the schedule. So probably not every year, but maybe every other year.
I think it was great. And I did appreciate Commissioner Kincannon when she said, like, did something happen that we're in trouble? Like, I think they were worried that you were
Yeah.
doing a training, but
I typically don't attend their meetings, so when the attorney shows up.
yeah, right.
What
I'm
Right.
the attorney here.
And then you show them the graph and what to do and where they, so
So I just wanted to clarify, I was just there to give a training and there's no problems.
thank you. All right, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. Just an update on a few projects. Otsego Creek, that's pretty well wrapped up. I sent some photos to Adam, and I expect in the next Friday's summary, he'll probably include some of those in there. Looks pretty good to me. So it's tough to get to right now when Prairie Point Fourth development moves forward. Then the road crossing will be put in and some streets near it. So, but for now, it's difficult to get to. Odine Avenue water main, this utility staff and I are meeting with the HOA on July 1st, because we will be putting a pressure reducing valve within their property. And we're sending notices to adjacent landowners, but that's gonna start probably prior to your next council meeting. The 2025 mill and overlay project throughout the city. The city's crews have completed the storm or the sanitary sewer manhole rehab project. There are just a few of them left. So we're going to be doing the pre-con, but again, that might start around by the time your next council meeting is. Just want to let you know that that's going to be kicking off. At the next council meeting, the trails, the 2 trails that the city got awarded grants for, we'll be considering those. Tanglewood second grading is going on down by 70th Street and near border of Albertville. Prairie Point 4th is going to start up. That's over by Prairie View Schools. And then other developments are wrapping up. Anna Acres, Zockman Meadows, and Boulder Pass 4th. So lots of work going on in town besides the fire station going on too.
Thank you. Sergeant Altmans? You should have just stayed up there.
Yeah, welcome back.
I know better. I did have, I'm not knowing that that was going to get brought up, but I did have on my list that we have a few complaints, or a number of complaints. Just warm weather. There's kids home from school, so they're out at the parks and they're using different vehicles that have little engines on them. Whether it is, to your point, scooters with little engines on them or little mini ATVs. That's not necessarily just an Otsego problem. That's countywide. We're getting those sort of things everywhere. You know, it's the warm weather, and they're out on the trails, they're in the park. So we're trying to, again, case by case basis for us. You know, we're not going to be out citing kids for anything. So case by case basis, usually we just have a conversation with the parents, try to get them on board with limiting that activity to just their yard, or try to figure something out. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but it's a lot of conversation with parents. So haven't had any.
Are you knocking on wood?
I'm not. I don't even say.
Well, I was going to ask if there's been any accidents.
No, I'm
Good.
knocking on wood.
Good.
The second I said it, I don't like to jinx myself like that, because for some reason when I talk up here, things transpire after. So, okay. A couple other things. I will go into this a little bit. I have this on my list just because I have another meeting that I have to go to that is going to directly talk about it, but I thought it was kind of interesting how it relates to Otsego. On the 14th, we had the shootings that occurred in Brooklyn Park in the city of Champlin. That was a Saturday morning that had happened. Well, that Saturday happened to also be, I kind of have it written down as all hands on deck for the title of my notes here. How it relates to Otsego is the Wright County Sheriff's Office on that Saturday had obligations. Obviously, for our patrol division, we have contracts of how many cars need to be in each city, including Otsego. We also had an obligation and a contract that day to support the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office for a joint powers agreement at US Bank Stadium. It was a concert. We had a number of people, deputies that had to be at a concert. At the same time, we had a contract for Friendly City Days. We had a number of people, as I discussed at the last council meeting, we had a number of deputies that need to be there. Everything that happened with the shooting, there was things that had transpired and kind of slowly pushed into Wright County for some of the different obligations. That morning, there was a scheduled demonstration or protest in the city of Otsego at Tom Evers' office over on Parrish Avenue. There was scheduled protests across the country, including one that was supposed to be in Anoka County, which was probably one of the closest ones to the shootings. That event was canceled because the governor essentially got on and said, these protests are going to be a target for the shooter that is on the loose. So that was relayed by the governor of Minnesota, and the Anoka one was canceled. The Otsego one was not. So the people that were going to go to the Anoka one came to Otsego. So we ended up with the largest protest group that we've had probably of any capacity in Otsego. So I was in contact with the organizer for the Otsego one early that morning. She gave me a schedule. This is what time we're showing up. This is what time we're leaving. So I came in early to make sure I could just be present for it again with a ton of confusion as to what was going on with the shootings that were happening in the metro area and what was transpiring with the investigation. So I made sure that I was just there and present for the entirety of the protest. It, some very minor things occurred there that would be super minor in the grand scheme of things. So that was, I guess, some conversations with different people, but there wasn't any major issues. And like I said, when you have the organizer stated there was 1,000 people, I don't know if I would count it that high. It was definitely in the hundreds for sure. So we were there. Some of the other obligations that we had that kind of threw us for a loop that day. We had representatives of ourselves that live in Wright County. Again, with confusion of what was going on with the shootings, we then had an obligation to ensure that we had protection for those people into place. We started with just extra patrols. It got to the point where once night fell, we had deputies and marked squad cars on every single one of those houses of those representatives, state representatives for this in Wright County. There was a number of them. The sheriff, Sean Derringer, made sure he was in contact with each of them and making sure that they have an open line of communication as to what our game plan was and anything that they needed that we could facilitate that. I know I spoke with one of the representatives and was trying to get a good feel to say, I don't want to feel like an occupation force with the extra patrol on your house, but at the same time, I want to be close. And again, I have no idea what's going on with the shooting at that particular time. I had no idea if what the next target was. There was a hit list at the time that we weren't aware of, and going from there. The response to different calls that we had, we then recognized we needed to send 2 squad cars to basically every single call, because with that particular time, one squad car, a fake squad car. So we were making sure that every single call we had 2 squad cars. The FBI had different leads and tips and follow-ups that they needed to do in Wright County. So we needed to escort the FBI to most of these calls they had marked squad cars to go them. Otherwise they were showing up in plain clothes and or showing their badge and having unmarked vehicles. So we were going to go in there and follow with them. We increased the suspicious persons calls, suspicious vehicle calls, because naturally people are going to be aware of their surroundings. We're calling 911 to say, hey, this car is out of place. So those increased quite a bit. We also were running into an issue of any world events that are happening. So I give an example, as there was attacks on a U.S. base, a military base today in Qatar. There are a certain percentage of the population who go through psychological manic episodes where they believe that they are somehow involved in the incident, and they're calling 911, having basically either PTSD attacks, they're having manic episodes of different psychological things. Well, as this was happening on the day of the 14th, we were having a lot of those calls where people felt that they somehow were a part of it, or so we were having to kind of sort those out, because what's real, what's not, what's one of those deals. So it was definitely a test for us, I guess. And like I said, all hands on deck. The sheriff himself was up, a little personal for him, but he was up visiting his granddaughter up in North Dakota, and told his wife, we need to get home. So the chief deputy even came out that night. So it was anybody that could come in basically came in some capacity. That's why I say all hands on deck with that. So that was a little bit of a strain on the department, and I'm glad, I guess, on our end of things, everything went pretty smooth considering. So I put in a nice long day as well to try to get everything sorted out. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your
Yeah.
service, and everyone else that didn't get personal time on a weekend.
to get into that, if I'm being honest with you, so the sheriff has a very specific way of handling this. Is he has a big picture standpoint when it comes to that family time, right? Is on a normal day, maybe a day like today. If somebody calls me and says, Sergeant Altman, I need to go home for this reason, or this is going on, I need some time for family or whatever, done. The sheriff gives us authorization to make whatever adjustments you need to the schedule that makes sense. We can do that. That adds to the equity for the sheriff, where family time, but knowing when that Saturday, the type of day like the 14th, when that type of day happens, that the sheriff can go, I need help, and that he can kind of pull from that equity and recognize that this is one of the days that we need to kind of go the other way and make sure that we're supporting the sheriff and supporting the operations that are going on. So that's a huge deal that we can do that.
That's awesome. I'm grateful for the staff that we have and the candor that the sheriff is managing things.
Yeah, like I said, he came home and he put in a nice long day himself. So he
Yeah.
was out, and I know he said that his wife was driving home on the way from North Dakota, and he was just on both phones the entire time.
I can only imagine.
So I know he was in contact with all the other agencies. That next day, pretty much every single SWAT team of some capacity in the metro area got involved down in the search down in Sibley County. And then there was 2 incidents in Hennepin County that required a SWAT team. I know we ended up sending Maple Grove PD called us at one point to actually said, we need a drone operator to come. They had a SWAT operation. They need a drone, and all their stuff was down in Sibley County. It sounded like, so like, I'll send you 2. So we were able to fortunately send people down there and help them out. So
He's at Sherburne County now, right? That's what
I'm
I,
gonna guess he's up in the Sherburne County Jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
I'm talking
you.
about
Thank you.
questions. Sorry.
No, thank you. I think
Appreciate it.
we all knew that like we were in good hands and people were watching.
For sure.
I had my Wright County Mayors Association meeting last Wednesday and Sean was talking about that, about how busy it was. So he just said he was thankful for all of his deputies for stepping up, coming in when he needed it, and that everybody rose to the occasion. So,
Perfect.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
All right. Does anyone else have anything? And a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Corey. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The meeting is ended. Thank you all for attending.